Morning, students. Welcome to the Checkpoint Online Sessions. I'm Mr. Charles. This is the fourth lesson for week 5. Head of English, a poem by Carol Ann Duffy. I need you to go to your course book and we'll read the poem as a whole together, and then we'll go back and analyze it in the video. Today we have a poet in the class, a real live poet with a published book. Notice the ink-stained fingers, girls. Perhaps we're going to witness verse hot from the press. Who knows? Please show your appreciation by clapping, not too loud. Now sit up straight and listen. Remember the lesson on assonance, for not all poems, sadly, rhyme these days. Still, never mind. Whisperings, as always, out of bounds. But do feel free to raise some questions. After all, we're paying £40. Those of you with English second language, see me after break. We're fortunate to have this person in our midst. Season of mists and so on and so forth. I've written quite a bit of poetry myself. I'm doing Kipling with lower fourth. Right, that's enough from me. On with the muse. Open a window at the back. We don't want winds of change about the place. Take notes, but don't write reams, just an essay. On the poet's themes, fine, off we go. Convince us that there is something we don't know. Well, really, run along now, girls. I'm sure that gave an insight to an outside view. Applause will do. Thank you very much for coming here today. Lunch in the hall? Do hang about. Unfortunately, I have to dash. Tracy will show you out. This poem is a resentment from the poet itself, Carol Ann Duffy, to English teachers. Supposedly, she's in the presence of an English teacher in a classroom, and this English teacher is introducing her to her students. Now let's analyze the poem. When she says, today we have a poet in the class, a real life poet with a published book, this is sarcasm, as opposed to supposedly poets are supposed to be dead. So this one is a real live poet with a published book. She's being sarcastic. Notice the ink-stained fingers, girls. So what indicates this is a belittling term. I need you to take notes for everything we analyze on your book, on a notebook, because every line has something to say. So ink-stained fingers, this is a degrading term. She is trying to mock her, that this is the only way to know a poet by ink-stained fingers. And she doesn't say fingers that have ink on them, she says ink-stained. A stain is associated with something permanent, right? Is associated with something bad. It cannot be removed. So ink-stained, also belittling term. Now we're going to witness verse hot from the press. Have you heard the phrase before, hot from the oven? As if it is now it has been made. It has just been produced or manufactured. She's again trying to provoke mockery out of the poet in front of her students. That now we're gonna hear something fresh. Verse hot from the press, as opposed to verse being the food and press being the oven. Who knows? Please show your appreciation by clapping, not too loud. This is a reference to authority. The head of English, the teacher, is an authoritative figure. She's commanding her students to show their appreciation by clapping and not too loud. And throughout the poem again, she tells them that whisperings are out of bounds, as always. So even whispering is not allowed. This is a reference to how much of an authority the teacher is. Now sit up straight and listen, again commanding the students. Remember the lesson on assonance, for not all poems, sadly, rhyme these days. She's mocking the poet that she doesn't use rhyme anymore, like the old days. The teacher considers the old days to be gold days, and now the poets do not use assonance, or which is a literary device for metrics, and not even rhyme. So this is sad for her. Still, never mind. It's okay. Whisperings are not allowed, as we said, or out of bounds, as always. This is to assert her authority figure. Do feel free to raise some questions. After all, we're paying £40. This is a this is a great insult. This is a big insult to the poet. The poet came to school with ask through a request from the school that come to our classrooms and explain your poetry, explain your method of thinking, and when this teacher or this poet comes, he is paid. He is paid for doing this job as a thank you for coming. He's paid £40. And you're not supposed to reveal, as a teacher, you're not supposed to reveal this in front of your students. This is degrading that this person is coming only for money. Also, this is to belittle the poet. Those of you with English second language, see me after a break. This is a reference, or this is an indication to discrimination. Kind of racism, not based on race, but based on the language abilities. She's belittling the capabilities or the capacity of her students by saying that you who speak English as second language, you're less better, you're worse than people or than children who speak English as a first language. So you come see me after a break so I can re-explain everything again. We're fortunate to have this person in our midst, in between us or among us, this person. Season of Mists and so on and so forth. Season of Mist is a reference to a poem by a poet named Keats. He is a great poet that lived in close to the 1600s or the 15 and 1600s. And she is referring to him like this in a quick and a so on and so forth, like it doesn't matter, like it's very little importance. Imagine right now I tell you, we'll take some English lessons, you know, about Shakespeare and some writers and Hamlet and, you know, so on and so forth. The so on and so forth and the tone that I'm using belittles, makes much less of the great value of the subject talking about. Imagine we're talking about history, let's say, and a great historian's name comes, or a great king's name comes in the conversation, and we say so on and so forth. This belittles the accomplishments of that name. I've written quite a bit of poetry myself, and now doing Kipling with lower fourth. The Kipling, also a reference to a poet, and the teacher is telling the students that I've done poetry myself, but now I'm teaching it with lower fourth grade students. Now she is lamenting. Now she expresses her sadness that I write poetry as well, but unfortunately now I teach it to lower fourth grade students. I don't practice poetry, I teach poetry. Right, that's enough from me. On with the muse. Right, that's enough from me. This right, as with the first and second stanzas, there is almost no interruption between the stanzas. In the first stanza, she says, or it ends with now, and the second stanza, sit up straight and listen. This enjapment, this no pause, also enforces the authority figure of the teacher, that nobody can speak, nobody can participate but her. Now she says, that's enough from me, almost half through the poem. So half through the lesson, the poem represents the lesson, right? Half through the lesson, she's talking. She's speaking about herself, mockingly introducing the poet. On with the muse. She doesn't even refer to the teacher by her name, to the poet, sorry, by her name. She says the muse. The muse is a Greek god or goddess for inspiration. She's mockingly describing the poet as a goddess of inspiration. Open a window at the back. We don't want winds of change about the place. Winds of change inside the classroom is a reference to what the poet could actually open the minds of the students to. That the winds of change is an expression that is used in society, in social manners, in political manners, in psychoanalysis manners. It means that there's a big change coming. There's a big effort to divert from one thing to 180 degrees another thing. And the teacher realizes that the poet is bringing new, great inspirational material to the classroom, and she doesn't want that. She doesn't want her students to be inspired and to feel appreciative of the poet. So she says, open the window at the back so the winds of change can escape. We don't want winds of change in this classroom. Let it go out. Take notes, but don't write reams, just an essay on the poet's themes. Do take notes, but don't write a lot. The word reams means great amounts, means don't write a lot, just an essay on the poet's themes. The themes of a poem is one of the most superficial, one of the most external things, one of the most basic things you do to a poem. So imagine I take you, for example, to play football or to watch a football match. And then we enter the stadium and I tell you, you see all the players? Yeah, now let's go back home. This is the least thing about the action you're promising. So if you really want to analyze a poem, the themes are the most basic, the first thing you do. And this is what the teacher requires from her students, that don't work too hard. Only the themes. Just an essay on the poet's themes. Not a lot, just one essay. Fine. Off we go. Come on, start. You teacher, poet. Start. Convince us that there's something we don't know. This is very arrogant. This is very badly proud from the teacher, that she's daring the poet to convince her about something that she doesn't know or the whole class don't know. This is quite arrogant to claim that she knows everything, and she's challenging the poet to give her some new ideas. Well, really, run along now, girls. This well and really, if we insert next to really HMM, this further increases the mockery. The well and really are mocking. The teacher is mocking the poet. That, oh, really, seriously, that as if we didn't know that. Thank you very much. Again, to increase belittling her. Run along now, girls. Come on, leave class, girls. I'm sure that gave an insight to an outside view. Applause will do. So, again, to assert authority, applause for or applaud for the poet. Thank you very much for coming. Lunch in the hall? Do hang about. Imagine me inviting you to lunch and just saying, lunch in this restaurant? Yeah, stay. This is the worst invite that could possibly exist. That's what the teacher tells the poet, because she's telling her not from the heart, just because out of superficial courtesy. This is enforced by the coming idea. She tells her, unfortunately, I have to dash. I have to go. Tracy will show you out. Tracy is a name of a student, any student, anonymous alias student. She tells her, I can't go with you. Unfortunately, I have to go out. And this student will take you to lunch in the hall. The whole poem is entitled Head of English. Again, with the title, we can figure out something that this teacher thinks of herself to be the greatest in English. The head, because the head is a reference or a symbol of the greatest thing, right? We cannot exist without our heads. A company cannot exist without its manager, its head. A school cannot exist without an acting principal, right? A principal that performs their duties. A head. So the head of English, this could be a pun, literary device that literally means she is the head of the English department, and another meaning of mockery, that this teacher thinks of herself to be the greatest in English. This whole style is called a dramatic monologue. The dramatic monologue is where this poem or play, there is a voice in it that expresses thoughts. These are not the words of the poet, but of the character that the poet is trying to describe. These are not the words of, as we said, the poet Carol. These are the words of the character she's describing, being that the teacher. And this dramatic monologue often includes, as we saw, irony, humor, mockery, that she's mocking this person. It has many impolite incidents that she tells the teacher, oh, come on, you want to have lunch now? Okay, the student will take you. Don't applaud to her too much. Don't speak at all. Write something, but don't write too much. Don't dig deep. Stay in the themes only. This dramatic monologue is a drama device or dramatic device that reveals this character's attributes not being the poet's or the writer's words, but this character in front of the audience or readers to evoke mockery, to evoke real feelings towards this character. We're done for today. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this lesson of poetry. Stay safe and keep up your good work.